tell me.
No, it's okay, it's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So this evening, we're learning the Malchus of the Rabbi of Parshas, Shlach Be'ez Hashem, the limud is taking place in the base Knesset. Some tzedek, Asher, year Kodesh, year Tikkun, Kodesh twice. This evening is Yom Chamishi, the Yud Ches, Sivan Toshin. So we begin like this. Yedua, says the Rebbe, she'af she'bekol Shabbos koyden b'Torah Parsha Achas Dvar. Each Shabbos we learn as a well-known the minhag is not good. Why is the Rebbe so doubtful? It's well known, the minhag Yisrael, that on Simchas Torah we complete the reading of the Torah and begin again on the same day, the Parshas Dvar. However, that Torah, which begins with something wrong, must tell me.
No, it's okay.
Because I keep seeing it sort of.
It's cracking a little bit.
It's
cracking. This is nice.
Okay.
It's so the Torah is then divided into weekly parshas or sedras or sections, and yet there's a close interrelation between each parsha and the whole Torah kula, and in each parsha itself, every portion of the parsha is part of the whole general message of that parsha, and all of that is due to the fact that the Rabbi explains detail that the Torah was given me Hashem Echad Kodesh Baruch Hu, He's Tachlis Ha'aftas Ha'Peshuta, and therefore the Torah is also like that even though it divides into the sections, it's all part of Actus, and it's all Torah Achas. And it's very interesting that expression, Torah Achas, occurs in this week's Parsha. So that's what he says. B'chol yom b'shavua leinu yikelet echad me'parsha hakosher l'isa yom. Avu became kol chelik me'parsha kosher l'kol ha'parsha. The kol parsha kshura l'kol ha'torah. V'lochein nikras ha'torah torah achas. In other words, it's all one immense actus, even though it's divided into sections. And each, that's what we call our ischalkas, which brings lidei actus. Now that's important that later, I don't know if we're going to get that far, but later the Rabbi makes a whole point out of ischalkas, which ultimately leads to actus. So the Rabbi said that it's very fact that each portion on a weekly basis is really part of the whole Parsha, and the whole Parsha is part of the oneness and the actors of the whole Torah Kula. So the Rebbe says that that's especially noticeable and brought out in a very vivid way in this week's Parsha, Parshas Shlach. He said, Kol HaParsha Kimat the whole Parsha, Midaberes B'noisei Echad. It all talks about, except for a little bit towards the end of Chamishi, and even in Chamishi, today's Chittas, there's also a whole shaykhis between the Nasochim and the Meraglim. This is well known. Yeah, so that's also linked up. The Rebbe says that Shiluach HaMeraglim, that's the central, as it were, theme of the whole Parsha. Yeah, and the whole story of the Shiluach HaMeraglim divides into sections. Achonis L'Shiluach. First of all, we talk about before they were sent and what happened and how they were chosen. Harigol B'Poel, when they actually went into it, so did whatever they did. Ha'uinash, then we find later, Ha'uinash Shahutla Aleichem, the punishment that Hashem very, very severely placed or brought upon them, the Al-Kol Am Yisrael, and as a result, and the development of that upon the whole Klal Yisrael, or that's all part of the story of the Meraglim. That's all a hemshech, and it's a teitzah of whatever is the inner point of the Meraglim. V'hatoches Hashem l'Yisrael Shem v'amris hakoyol eim yizku lehigonis la'oretz. In other words, not that present generation, but that the tremendous kapeda of Hashem doesn't mean that they're not going to go eventually until it. So it just means that that particular generation, that's not going to be Zeicha. And we see that in today's Chittas. Rashi brings down at the beginning of the Nasochim, that the Torah says, V'hoyo ki yoboyo ki soboyo ha'oretz. And Rashi says, Biser lehem, she cancelled the audit. In other words, that after all the terrible results and the upshots of the Sipur, the Shiluach, and the Regal of the Meraglim, nonetheless we see a Kodesh Baruch who promises them that they will go into Eretz Yisrael. So that's also part of the Meraglim. That's like even everything the Meraglim did couldn't be Pogeya ad kedikach, that they wouldn't go B'klal into Eretz Yisrael. So there was a big kol zeh mitpares al pnei kol haparsha kimat, that spreads itself out over kimat the whole parsha. Kach shekedei lahavin ma b'diuk hoyo. In order to understand that, that's a very, very tricky question. The Diuk Mahaya, and the great Meforshim, including Rashi and the Ramban and the Rabbeinu B'chai, and all of the great Meforshim spend tremendous effort trying to explain exactly what went wrong, what was not right, what was wrong with the Meraglim, why did they say what they did. And Moshe Rabbeinu did want to send them, but Hashem said, I'm leaving it up to you. I'm not telling you, and all sorts of amazing diukim which demand tremendous attention and understanding in the simple pshat. So the Rebbe says, in order to understand and to work out a approach, exactly what exactly occurred. It's not enough to learn just, let's say, what Hashem said to them after they said what they said. Or it's not enough to learn what Kodesh said. Or it's not, you have to learn the whole parsha in order to get, because each part of the parsha is a part which is essential to the whole nature of the whole parsha. So therefore he says, "Lo maspik likori chelek od me'parsha, masha mokia shemeduber b'parsha achas." From that we see that we really have one parsha. The parsha is achas. In other words, it's all united in one theme. And therefore, the Rabbi said, "I have my taina that the mitzvah tzitzis at the end of the parsha, that's like a separate thing. It doesn't seem to have anything to do." So the Rabbi said, if you study carefully, then you see that there is a very integral connection between the mitzvah of tzitzis with the whole Shiluach HaMeraglim, the whole part. He said, "Gam mitzvah tzitzis, alei masupa b'siyum ha'parsha, matzbiya al hakesher shekol mitzvah lekol ha'torah kula." He said, "Bekach mitzvah proteus." It's one of the Taryag mitzvahs. So it's a specific mitzvah. Nonetheless, Nema Aleha, it's written in reference to her, there's something in tzitzis which embraces all the mitzvahs. And therefore there's a inyan, a day, years, that you, as it were, connect yourself in your zikaron with all the mitzvahs of the Torah. And it's well known that there's a big deal in the great Rishonim, whether it's actually a mitzvah to look at the tzitzis, to actually look at them and see them, or whether it's enough just to sort of know you have the tzitzis and through that remember, and the word re'isam is lavdavke, or whether the word re'isam is davke. You have to davke look at the tzitzis, because if you look at them with your eyes, that will make the zikaron of all the mitzvahs much more intense and much more real by the person. And therefore, the minig by Yidden is the tefillah shachas, putting the tzitzis on your eyes and moving them across your eyes, and everything, that at least in those few minutes of tefillah shachas, you will actually look intently and definitely at the tzitzis. But it appears that it's an inyan, according to certain great authorities, that whenever you have an opportunity during the day to look carefully at the tzitzis. And it's well known, the story about the Baal Shem Tov. You guys know the story. Once the Baal Shem Tov went to the Omer, and he was standing still. He was standing Shemanes, or he was saying Shemanes aloud by the Omer, and people noticed that his tzitzis were dancing, his tzitzis were moving. In other words, he had been mamshik, the highest of Erekus, into the tzitzis and Kirikach, that they actually moved down independently of his movement. In other words, that they had their own chayes, being as they are in Klodi, in the whole Torah. And therefore the Baal Shem Tov made sure they would never keep shooting by him. Yeah. Aber Malchus says the Rabbi, but he, up Shakula, can make it call a mitzvahs. And Rashi brings that the mitzvah of tzitzis is weighed up against its equal, as it were, in weight. Can they get call a mitzvahs? But that indicates Masha Mokir Shakol Inyan of mitzvah. Proteus Kushura Kola Terakula, even though there's a special nature in tzitzis. But however, that indicates to us that if you look carefully at every Indian proti, particularly a mitzvah proti is, then you'll be able to see how it's really got a reference. And it refers and in some way joins you up to all the other mitzvahs in the Torah. For example, take Tefillin. The Gemara Masechet Kedushin says that Hukshe Kol HaTorah Kula L'Tefillin. the whole Torah has been compared to tefillin. And we find similar remarks in other places, in Dvar, in reference to other mitzvahs, that even though it's a specific mitzvah, it's got its own particular halachah, nonetheless, it's like a way up against all the other. It's got a certain character in it, which reminds us of all the mitzvahs, kulam. So the Rabbi said all this indicates that the whole Torah is really one thing. And it's one on the famous statement of the Rabbi Gaon. You know that once it's one on tremendous respect, and even though he was a tremendous critic, it was very hard to find favor in his eyes, in the sense of you couldn't just give him some sort of pshat or biyotze or something. He was very it's one on the tremendous respect, loving respect that he gave to the Rebbe Rashab, and then afterwards also the respect that he held the Yeshiva Tompe Tmim, and the Tmim, yeah. And I once heard from, I think it was Reb Simcha Gordetsky many years ago, quite a bit, that one night he and another Bacha had been doing something in the way of the Shlichas for the Yeshiva, and they came back late into the city or the town of Rochelle, wherever the later he was the Rabbi Minsk, he was the Rabbi. They came into this, and it was late at night, and they didn't know where they would be able to put themselves up for the night. And then they thought that probably by the Rabbi children, he's not the sort of person that's probably shopping. So they went round to his house, and they could see a light. So they knocked on the door, and I'm sure the Rabbi himself opened the door, and he just took one look at him, and he said, "Tmima." He said, the guys, he just could see on them, he could see on the chotemas were talking to him, put on people's faces. They said, "Tmima." And so they said, "Yes, we're terribly sorry to trouble the road. Maybe we could just find a couch or a place where to sleep over till the morning." So he said, of course, and he personally took them in, and his Rebbe was apparently already resting. So he went to the stove and he boiled them up some potatoes. That was a very common mite at that time in Russia. And he cut some bread, and he told them to wash them. And he gave them some nice bread that he had, plus cooked potatoes. They kept saying, "No, please don't do this," And it's well known how he was so makpid, smart, every moment. So makpid. And yet he gave away a whole, portion of his time for two Bachim. He knew himself that they were Tmim. So we see the great respect he had for our Rabbi, for Talmud Tmim. So he once said to the Rebbe Rashab, he said that he has reached a stage sometime where he sees the whole Torah as one word. The whole Torah is like one, Mila Bachas. He said that every now and then he reaches a point where the whole Torah is just like one word. That's him. Even the Rebbe was very taken with that. So you can see that everything is really actors. It's all Torah achas. It's all linked. Every prat just reveals its own in it, but it reveals something to the cloud. Much עדיין דורש הסבר ומהו הקשר בין רעיון האקטוס בתורה המודגש במיוחד בפרשה לבין תוכנה פרשת המרגלים. If we're going to say there is such a in there, then we need to understand what's this in the actors in the whole Torah, and how every prat in the whole Torah interrelates and indicates, bears out the actors. What's it got to do with the Meraglim? We don't require notice, even from actors in the Moroccan, on the contrary, they seem to, how would you say it, rather unfortunately, mess things up, to use the expression. And then it's not clear in Cain what is this amazing message of actors that comes out from Meraglim, Umadu Kose Neufel, Dabki Vesofri de Shiva. Why does all that come out? The Neufel, meaning it falls into the time of the end of Chodesh Shiva. Every year, over there in America, they're like a week after us. So by them it's already close to, this was already Shabbos Mavochim, when the Rebbe gave them. But at least by us it's already after halfway, it's already the 19th of Sivan, which is already getting close to the end of Sivan. So we need to understand what's it got to do with. So the obvious idea that occurs to the thinking reader is that Sivan is the Chodesh of Matan Torah. And Matan Torah is this whole amazing actors, how it came from Hashem down to the Yidden in the form of their sons and Dvar, and Matan Torah the Klal. Something not right there.
Did it wait an hour? I was asking.
Wait an hour.
Wait an hour, just say wait an hour.
So we need to understand what is the connection of all these things. Parshas Hashavua Mesaperet Amaraglim Shesholach Moisha. We, in the actual reading of the Parsha, we talk about the spies in inverted commas, because the Rabbi is going to point out they weren't really meant to be spies, but just the same. That's what the world calls them. Yeah? So the Parsha itself talks with the Meraglim that Moshe Rabbeinu said. And in the Haftarah we also talk about spies, but not the spies that Moshe Rabbeinu sent, but the ones that Yeshua sent two spies to Yericho. So he says, every Haftarah has to have in itself a portion or a illumination from the Parsha. But he said very different Meraglim, and he said different things to them than what Moshe Rabbeinu did, very much so. And all of that, demands an explanation. But there's obviously some basic connection and similarities between them. He said, "Bein shnei shlichios elu, yeshnam mispar hevdelim ader shimbia." The Rabbi said, "We look carefully at the whole episode of Moshe Rabbeinu's spies and what eventuated, and you compare it to what eventuated from Yeshua's spies, how they went, and how they were sent, then you see that there are all sorts of different points, and they require an explanation. So the first one, Moshe Shalach Meraglim al Das Atzmai. Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, I don't need to send Meraglim. I've already said mine, as they say in Yiddish, there's an expression, what I have to say, I've already said. If you want to send, then you'll send. So we'll see later, why would Moshe Rabbeinu have decided? He knew what Hashem said. He came, why did Moshe Rabbeinu? He came on his own, as it were, dark, which all that tends to indicate that Moshe Rabbeinu had a certain bechira. He could have not sent them around him. So he, as it were, he bears a rather central, what one might call achrayus, or like direct connection with the Meraglim. So therefore he said that's something very bolet in reference to these Meraglim. Hashem amalo shlach lecho. You should do it according to l'datcho. Ani einani mitzvah. Hashem said, I don't tell you, because I'm not commanding you, because I've already said mine. Yeah, he said, if you want to do it, then you do it. L'uma zo ish Yeshua nitzaver al yidei Hashem l'shloach meraglim. And Yeshua said to meraglim because Hashem told him to do it. Now that's a very interesting, just by the way, that's a very interesting longish point. Because if you look carefully in the Haftarah, it's not written that Hashem, it's not written clearly that Hashem said to Yeshua to send him right. But the Rabbi makes the point that some of the great Mephoshim, through careful observation of different factors that concern the actual sending, the result of it, the way it was done, quietly and still, and all sorts of factors, all can indicate that Yeshua wouldn't have done that had it not been that Hashem. In other words, all the aspects of it tend to bear out that it was a direct tzivui from Hashem. So Moshe, number 2, lo mofia habitui meraglim. By Moshe Rabbeinu, we don't find the word meraglim. Because in the Torah, in this whole Parsha, you don't find the word meraglim. Ne'amarag shlach l'chol anoshim. We should send people, the Yosuru, and they should literally travel around and look around. The Yosuru, from the Tayyeh, to be a tourist almost. Yeah. So obviously, Moshe Rabbeinu meant something. They were not just going on a tourist trip, but obviously, the word Yosuru has in itself even the word Yisaron. So there was obviously some high aim that Moshe Rabbeinu intended, and we have to say that when the Meraglim actually left, they were aware of that high aim, and maybe to a certain extent they gave it a certain impetus by their leaving. Later, the whole, and terribly unfortunate, you read it, occurred later. Not at this particular moment. And therefore, Shlach l'chon v'Yosua is Eretz. But Yeshua ne'emar b'maforish anoshim meraglim. In other words, that Yeshua, he sent people l'chatchila with the tzivui of Hashem. He sent meraglim, and meraglim is spies, and that implies something completely different than anoshim l'sur or. Yeah. So the Rebbe is going to develop on that. The third point is that Moshe shalok shtei masrei anashim. Moshe sent 12 people, somebody representing each shevet. And it's mashma from the lesson of the Pasuk that they were Nasiim. They were very leading people. They're not the Nasiim mentioned by the counting at the beginning of the Sefer Bamidbar, and also in Parshas, they put all their korbanos in it. But nonetheless, certain of the great Mephoshim say that they were the shluchim of those Nasiim. In other words, that the real Nasiim made them into Nasiim. But again, that the real Nasiim felt it was a little bit not their job to go, traveling around, in the country, looking things over, etc. And therefore, they made these guys, and therefore, in that regard, they're also Nasiim. He said only 2 people. And once again, we're not told in the Haftarah who they were. We're not told. Here we have a whole long announcement, very pompously, who these people are. Although when I get to the 2 people of Yeshua, we're only told by Chazal who they were. And then the next thing is that Moshe Shalach is Nasiya Yisrael. Moshe sent very leading people, the leaders of each tribe. And and that's exactly who they were. Now it so happens that one of them was one of the people that Moshe Rabbeinu sent. So he would be like a Nasi. He would have a certain status maybe, but that's not mentioned. It's kilo not a issue so much by these people. Yeah, Ilu Yeshua Shlach Anoshim Stam, in the passage, we are told by Divrei Chazal when they were Amaraglim Shal Moshe Pirsumu Es Atmam. They made very clear what they're up to and what they're doing, even when they went on the Shlichas, when they were actually in Eretz Yisrael. They didn't try to hide themselves. They didn't hide all over the place, but they walked. So Hashem held that the Mitzvahs were busy burying people and everything. They didn't really have time to pay a great deal of attention, even though they did. By the way, they noticed them as a group, and they said we saw some little ant guys over there in the orchard over there. They were giants, these guys, and so on. But they didn't really make a tremendous effort to hide themselves. And also, when they left the camp, everybody knew about it. All the Indians knew that this was happening. So he says, Kol b'nei Yisrael yodu k'shem haraglim hoku v'chozru yevagam beretz Yisrael. They didn't hide themselves, and they didn't show any worry. They all went together. They were a group of 12, and they remained together, except for that he went temporarily at a certain point. He went to Hebron, and he prayed on the Kivrei Olive of Yeshua, that he was the direct shliach of Moshe Rabbeinu, according to most of the great Mephoshim. He didn't leave, and they were all together. They went as a group, which is a beautiful. If you're a group of people, you very easily notice. Hashem asah nes miyuchad kedei shelo yogishu behem. And Hashem made a very special mess that the Mitzvah wouldn't have time to be Malchus, this group of guys walking around. In other words, all these people died in Mitzrayim, and they were busy burying them. But Yeshua, Hoku v'Sheket, nobody knew about it except Yeshua and them. Yemiblisha b'nei Yisrael yedu al kach, v'Yeshua avtziva aleim shiyu maragli cheresh. And the word cheresh means somebody who is not able to speak almost. The word cheresh is a word meaning like silent, or it's also the word for a person not able to speak or a person not able to hear. It's called a cheresh. That indicates how they call it tznius and hiddenness. Therefore, they went in the way that normally you would expect spies to go. And they behaved in a very sort of quiet, non-outspoken way. They had to hide themselves. That was bias Rachel in the whole story. What happened? And she had to hide them on the roof and the whole night. Meragli Moshe is Devu B'Kol Eretz Yisrael Kula. Now this is another very fascinating thing. The whole 12 tribes representatives went around the whole of Eretz Yisrael as a group. So since you represent, let's say, Shevet Shimon or Shevet Manasseh, you're the representative. You say, listen, tell me what's going to be the portion of Shevet Shimon or Shevet Manasseh. And I was there, Nossi, I will take a good look at that. But instead of that, we find that all the 12 Meraglim went all around together. So the Rebbe said that's of interest. So Ein Hanami, this was before it had been decided clearly whose portion was going to be who. But that was only later, at the end of the 40 years, before they actually went into Eretz Yisrael. But just the same, it's no problem. Hashem could have revealed in some way what are the approximate borders of each tribe and each member, or each Hadikot Nasi. He could have, but obviously his tribe would have been very pleased with that. He would tell them what's going to be their portion. And he said, we don't find any of these. We don't find any of these in Yonim, nor they all went all together as a group, all open, Eretz Yisrael. So the Rabbi said, "V'inu maragli Yeshua, amnam nitzavu l'raglu es kol Eretz Yisrael, es kol Oretz, avu v'poyo." Yeah, they were only one night. Bo'isa laila shehimu l'bayah shalocho, ein neltu li'ishabei. And before the year, they were obliged that they should hide outside the town. They left the town. She let them down the wall, and they went outside the town, and they spent the night hiding wherever they went. And then the searchers looked for them, and when they felt it was safe, they went back to Yeshua. So in case they were only part of an evening in one portion of one city. So they didn't look around the whole Eretz Yisrael whatsoever. And yet they came back and they said to Moshe Rabbeinu, they said to Yeshua, we've carried out, and this is the situation. And Yeshua said, oh, wow, that's great. This is tremendous information. Here we go, and we're going, and we're going to conquer it. I mean, they didn't really do anything. So that's the Shaila, what's all this, And they were hidden outside the city. They were hiding. That was the finish of their sleeping. Moshe Rabbeinu's guys, they all went in, and 40 days, they were, all of them as a group, which is very noticeable and very bolet. They walked all around Eretz Yisrael, and Rashi tells us exactly where they went. They went up, the east side, and they turned west, and they went here, and they went there. And they're all marching together as a group. Everybody went everywhere. So that it was, this is very interesting, the difference between the two sets of Maraglim. Ha'ezbalakahu, says the Rebbe, Sheshtei Ashlichos Shel Moshe v'Yeshua hayu l'tzeir shtei matoroi shoinois shishlimu zeh zu zu. Albeit these two aims perfect, balance out one the other, but they're two completely different aims altogether. Moshe Rabbeinu had another aim and another idea altogether when he said there's Meraglim, and Yeshua had another idea. And that was a completely different aim and a completely different issue. It's just that ultimately these two things, as it were, perfect one the other, or they bear one the other out. Yesh not pa'ulas rigul b'tei ladas ketzad lidboish. There's a certain way of spying and a certain sort of spying, where the whole thing is in order to know how to conquer, as you might say, militarily the country. And that's the normal concept of spying. Normally, why do I send spies? Because I'm going into an area that I don't really know. I want to know exactly how am I going to, the best way, on the basis of military considerations, what's the best way to attack these people at the weakest spot? It's a military consideration. V'yeshna pulas rigo kedei lahakir es ha'oretz kedei sheha'am yirtu yirtalalis la'oretz b'simcha. The Rebbe said there's another form of rigo, and that's got nothing to do with the military side of it. The military side of it is already promised, and it's already for sure that that's going to be the Hatzlacha. All we're concerned about is that maybe there won't even be a military side to it in a real way, because it's all in the hands of Hashem. But nonetheless, people, there's a certain inertia in people that they don't like going into something new that they don't really know exactly what it's all about. So therefore, it could be they might have gone, but they would go, how do you call it, Kabbalah soil, how does it go? They would go, Hashem told us this, so here we go. Yet Hashem wanted that since this was a tremendous issue, the conquering and moving into Eretz HaKodesh, it's the center of the whole promise of the Yitzhak time, that the people should go with a chesed, well, the whole purpose of Moshe Rabbeinu's rebuild was not to work out militarily what to do. The whole purpose of it was only to find out the milas of Eretz Yisrael, to find out the, how do you call it, the great positive aspects of Eretz Yisrael, and to come back and tell the people about that. Then they would go with simcha. They'd be very happy to go, and whatever Hashem would do, He would do. It has nothing to do with finding out what we need to know for warlike purposes. It therefore named to that Moshe Rabbeinu's Meraglim, what he meant was a completely different idea than what Yeshua meant. Because Yeshua was holding right at the moment, and he's the new leader, and his Indian is Dafki to find. In Pnimis Advarim, it's known that Yeshua was a lower level. And therefore, he had to make war to get the whole Jewish people in there. So in order to make war effectively, he sent Meraglim. Why they only stayed a few hours in one city and then they hid and everything, that we'll deal with. I don't know if we're going to be able to deal with it tonight, but that's an issue which is easy to answer. But the whole purpose of their going was a military thing. Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't concerned with that, and therefore his Meraglim were only sent to Losu Esoret, and Moshe Rabbeinu tells them, and the Rabbi develops on it with unbelievable geonas and skill, full of amazing footnotes, that you can see from all the Pesukim. Moshe Rabbeinu had no military considerations whatsoever. His whole in was only to see, and that the Meraglim should come back and tell the great milas that they saw in Eretz Yisrael, and so everybody would go. They're going to go anyway, and they're going to be victorious anyway, but they would go. You have a simcha, or betul levo, and befrat, not only betul levo, but b'chevet. You had to go with the rotzen, and it's well known, whatever you do, b'simcha, and you do with a great rotzen, whatever you do, it's much more and unbelievably more effective that way. And Moshe Rabbeinu wanted they should all go to him with him, b'simcha, betul levo. Well, that's why he sent his Meraglim. Well, I mean, it's a whole different picture. It's a whole different idea. He said, he said, Meraglim Moshe lo nishlu k'dei ladas keitzad likbais. They were not sent to find out military considerations, how to conquer. That wasn't the issue. Ela k'dei lahakir esor, or it's only to find out the great knowledge of Eretz, so what's it all about? Ve'ilo Meragli Yoshua, fa'alo yitzukim lahakir es ma'alim sayan shel Eretz Yisrael, kiven shezeh kvar nazeh b'shleimas b'zman shel Moshe. Now this is a very important point. The Rebbe says that the Meraglim of Moshe Rabbeinu sent, even though mitzad achad they messed up a terrible tragic result came from them, however, they did have things that they achieved, and there were certain levels where they did carry out what Moshe Rabbeinu said. And when they first came back, they came to Moshe and Yeshua and the whole Jewish people. They said, "Yeah, this is a tremendously beautiful country, and the zolas and the chavod and vash." And they said, "Yeah, everything." They showed the fruits and the whole thing, and then they started going into something that they weren't asked about. What they said that these guys are too strong for, that wasn't their arena. They weren't given that as part of their shlichah. They interfered, and they, as it were moisir on what Moshe Rabbeinu told him. I know, Shlach. That's what we spoke yesterday in this yeshiva. You've got to be bound up to Moshe Rabbeinu. You can't come along and add, do capably with all your koyas what you've been asked to do. That's your, so they did that. And that was famous, and that remained for all the years after. Everybody knew that it was a beautiful country. It was oozing Cholov Dvar, and all the everything was fine. When they finished saying what they were asked to say, then they blew the whole thing. And that was at a later point. You know? And so Yeshua, when he said Ismaragli, he had only a military consideration, because all that you're supposed to know in order the people should want to go, you already had that from the first Maragli. And when Yeshua took the Eden across the Jordan in there, so he didn't have to make them happy that they were going. They were very happy that they were going, because they learned from the first Maraglim of Moshe, the Mile, and that was their Shlichas. Oh, wow. Mashiach, Yeshua, he's only interested in how we're going to do it before you. And the Gemara says that Yeshua is like the Panei Lavona, Moshe Rabbeinu like the Panei Chama. He's sort of a lower level, and therefore the whole thing was necessary, military conquest. Moshe Rabbeinu might have been able to do it without military conquest altogether, but he wanted it should be done with simpler, to a level. And therefore, even though Hashem said, I don't need this, if you want, you should do it. Nonetheless, Moshe Rabbeinu did it. So that's a big question. Now the answer is that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted only it should be Besimcha Gedela, mitzad the milas that people would know they're going to. And that's all the Meraglim, that's all they were asked to tell. And therefore they weren't Meraglim. They were just travelers that they had to bring back good news. That's all they were asked to do. Mela says the Rebbe, therefore, Maragli Yeshua hayu tzrichim ladas keitzad lichbois eso oret. They had to know military consideration. Which city to attack first, etc., etc. Given Shebizmani Shori Yeshua hayazukukim gam lekar. They needed war. But by Moshe Rabbeinu, that wasn't the issue. They didn't need a military consideration whatsoever, because they've been told that they're going to go in with the greatest of what's what the Palabot. That's the amazing difference, that the Rebbe makes between the two speakers. It comes out of his a very, very profound approach, which is miyashing a whole lot of big problems that the Meforshim battle with. What happened here, and what went wrong, and what was this, and what was that. But if you learn it the way the Rabbi presents it, then it takes on this remarkable balance. And the way that you get to that balance is to examine the other Meraglim that was said by Yeshua, and you see that there's a very big difference between them. And that leads you, the examination of that difference, that leads you to what was in effect the whole mind of Moshe Rabbeinu's deciding that he would nonetheless send the Meraglim. So that's an absolutely mind-shaking chiddush that the Rebbe says here. And I looked through a lot of the Meforshim. I've been through a lot of different sources in the matter. An approach like that, I don't think you'll find it. This is just absolutely mamish mind-boggling. And it just makes so much sense out of, what Rashi says, that Hashem said, listen, I don't need it. And if you want to send them according to your opinion. And nonetheless, Moshe doesn't. It doesn't get together. Everybody breaks their head. What was happening with Moshe Rabbeinu, But now it makes good sense, because Moshe Rabbeinu, he wasn't worried about the Etzim going in. For sure they would go in. with whatever Hashem would do. And it would all be with great trust. He wanted that everybody should go with Simcha, and they should know the milas of where they're going. The tremendous greatness of the country they're going to. And then everybody would go, Simcha, over to Rebbe. So the Rebbe B'nai Yisrael Bikshu Mimaisha Meraglim Al-Manas L'Ragil L'Sor. So you look in Dvarim, when Moshe Rabbeinu tells the story of what happened. The Yidden, when they first came to Moshe Rabbeinu, they had in mind spying. They were worried about the military side of it. That's what the Yidden, when they first came to Moshe Rabbeinu tells the whole story that they're pushing the other, and it wasn't nice, and it wasn't a good thing. And they said they were concerned about how they're going to get in, the war that they were going to have. And so they wanted Meraglim in the usual way. They wanted like Yeshua's Meraglim. And the word Yakparu means literally to dig away at the country and get in and see what's going on militarily over there. V'yiradlu, that's all it is. Aval Moshe lo yisholach es hamaragim b'shvil zeh. Moshe Rabbeinu only saw that since they wanted somehow or another to send representatives, he would use that as a medium of elevating them to the right. And therefore, the Alter Rebbe points out also in Likutei Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu had in mind, according to all opinions, that in sending the Meraglim to elevate them. He didn't want them to stay on the level that they were, but he saw that since they were all pushing, they all had enthusiasm about going into the country and so on. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu thought that by sending them, and when they would be involved in the actual seeing Eretz Yisrael, they would cut themselves what they're really supposed to be doing. Unfortunately, in a way, that didn't happen. But in a way it did. Because when they first came back and they opened their mouth, they said the right thing. And that became part of the ownership of the Jewish people's knowledge. After that, Yidden knew that this was a very, very wonderful and perfect land. And everything would have been okay. They blew the whole thing by adding something they weren't even asked about. Avamela says the Rebbe, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe lo yisholach es b'shvil zeh. Kivan shelo hoya b'kach shum. So Hashem had already promised that they're going in. That it could have been without war. That's what some of the great Rishonim write. It would have been all in the form of miraculous warfare, not warfare at all. Moshe Rabbeinu told him that by Yamsuf. He said, Hashem, that he's going with him, he's going to fight for you. Asibu lekach sheMoshe shalach meraglim oisa af v'rak b'kdei lahakir es tchunas ha'oret u'may lo yiseiho. He wanted that they should tell about the wondrous good, wondrous milas of Eretz Yisrael, and that would stir the people up that they want to go b'simcha to level. And therefore he said, U'ishem eso oretz mahi. The in Abriya is a very, how do you call it, deep conviction and connection with something. You see it. Rashi, and the Rabbi learns in Rashi also goes with that approach. The whole idea was to see for yourself and to look and to see in your eyes the unbelievable greatness of Eretz Yisrael. Ha'im Eretzu, so everybody learns from that there was a military thing here. Moshe Rabbeinu said, you have to look at the cities and you'll be able to tell if it's bad fortress cities, then these guys are Gibborim. If they live on the field, then it's the sign there. I'm sorry, the other way around. If they're living in fortress cities, they're weak. But if they're living in open cities, they give way in that way. So people learn from that there is a military. So the Rebbe comes from the Rebbe says, no, that what Rashi's lesson is, that you'll be able to tell what sort of eretz this is. Because eretz is a very special eretz. It causes the people who grow in it a giboyim. Where you have a very special, rich country, then the people who grow there are very good. Starke Menschen. Where the eretz itself is a little bit, schwachlach, so the people are also schwachlach. So therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't need the military side. He wasn't worried about what sort of cities and but they boiling or not boiling. He wanted that they should realize that from that you can learn what sort of a wondrous country it is. You see, the Rebbe learns that the Yukim, in such a wondrous way that what looks to be a very simple military consideration, the Rebbe learns it altogether differently. It's not that way at all. And he puts it into Rashi in the most amazing way, and there's these huge footnotes. The Rebbe is mefalpul in what Rashi said. He said, if you really examine Rashi in the real correct way, you'll see that that's the way that Rashi learns it. And therefore, the Rebbe said, Anoshim Rabbi Moy Me'atim Zu Asiba Sheshor Moshe Zu Yasiba Shemoshe Bikes B'miyuchad Laharis Es Peiros Ha'oretz Atoyim. If it's beautiful, and he told him, he's chazaktim, you must be very strong and very pointed to bring back the fruits of the country. When the Yidden will see the fruits, they'll say, wow, look at these fruits, And the Gemara on the Sector Parshas tells what the fruits were like, so before the Churban Abayis, and even after the Churban Abayis. It's written about one of the Amoraim, I've forgotten his name. One of the Amoraim, that he ate a big pomegranate in Eretz Genoisa, up near Tiberia. That's where the fruits were tremendous. And he became shikah. He was unable to answer in halacha properly. He ate from this payre and he just became absolutely shikah. That the payres were so powerful, so unbelievable in Eretz. And that was already after the Churban. And the Gemara says before the Churban was much more than that. So Moshe Rabbeinu wanted that they should bring back the painters, and people would see these people would see these painters and say, wow, you're what sort of country it says, This is an amazing gift from Hashem. Here we are, And everybody would go, and there wouldn't have been any worry on the military side of the club. No worry. Again, the case of Yeshua was a different cheshbon. And therefore the Rebbe explains, I'm sort of running out of time also, but the Rebbe explains that by Yeshua's two people, that they were called, one of them was from the original Meraglim, and one was Pinchas. So the Rebbe says a very fascinating thing. Pinchas was a Kohen. A Kohen is Shevet Levi. So the Rebbe said the Shevet Levi never went with Moshe Rabbeinu. There wasn't a representative. Some people learn that Moshe Rabbeinu had a personal representative called Yeshua ben Nun, and he was like also representing his own Shevet, but also Shevet Levi. But Shevet Levi didn't go. For what? Because you were talking about a miraculous entry into the country, and just looking at how beautiful it's going to be for the country to Levi. They didn't get any part in the country. They had no nachla for Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't think it was even necessary or proper to send him. Over here, we're talking about war. Ain't no Shevet Levi doesn't necessarily go out to war, but Yeshua felt that due to the great schus of Pinchas, he was a very great person. He had what's called Mesiras Nefesh. In the whole story that happened with Zimri, Ibn Salul, the whole thing. And therefore Yeshua felt that at least to assist and give advice in the whole war, he was a very suitable person. Therefore he sent him. In other words, we're already talking on a different level. If you look in the story, once they got into Rochab's house, they only spoke a few sentences. They didn't really speak with her very much. All of a sudden, she says to them that you should realize that this whole country is going crazy because of you guys. And everybody's heard about the Yam Suf and everything that happened, and we're all everybody's scared. Everybody wants to clear out or hide all these returns and everything. The whole place is it's crazy. So Colin and Pinterest and stuff. Very cool. Oh, that's what we want to know. We're military guys, and we hear that everybody is already going out of their kingdom at Parshas. That's enough. We've already found out what we're supposed to find out. And therefore they went down the wall, they hid, and then they went back to Yeshua. And Yeshua said, oh, Shalom, thank you, this is amazing. Shlach that you fulfilled. And he said, okay, we're going in, Hashem is going to win the war for us. Everything is for sure. They were only there for a short while, less than a night, and part of the time they were hiding themselves. What's the big deal? They said that they heard from Rabbi what's the whole Ikka of what their Shlach was about. It was purely a strategic Shlach. So they heard that strategically the whole country was at war. And once they heard that, that was enough for them. They went back to Yeshua. Moshe Rabbeinu's guys is something different. They were supposed to go in and look around the country and see everything and bring back good news of all the wondrous might of Eretz Yisrael to the people. And then later, the Rebbe says that very fascinating, all 12 of them went all over the place. But it would have been enough for one, what he called Nasi, to find out somewhere or another. Emerson was before, that had been clearly, but they could have found out. Moshe Rabbeinu could have told them, and each one would have just gone for his own particular tribe. He said, nonetheless, we see all 12 of them went all over them. So the Rabbi talks about the Inifah Actors. That's a simon that Moshe Rabbeinu intended that despite the individual aspect that each tribe would hear from his nostrils, and there's no doubt that if he saw the whole earth, that he saw what it would eventually be, and he'd be able to tell them, you see, everything's okay. But at the same time, he would be able to tell them that he saw the whole of Eretz Israel. Well, that's the Indian of Actors that unites everybody together. And that's the Indian of Actors Shalamayim his Chalki. And then so that Moshe Rabbeinu sent 12 people, and each one had a basic idea for his share. He was a representative, but nonetheless, he joined together in actors, and they all did the same thing together. And the individual thing that they gave over to their tribes came from the actors that they saw in the whole generality. In other words, every person, and the Rabbi said that with that they were kind the mitzvah from V'yohavta L'Re'acha Kamoika, Hamei V'lidei Actus Yisrael, and that is a dogma of the Actus Obedience of the Eibishter. And so that when each of these Meraglim was walking around all over the country, he was being Mekayim, the mitzvah of V'yohavta L'Re'acha Kamoika, in a most amazing way. And that leads to this whole idea that we said, what is the connection with the actors here? We don't see it, actors. So the Rebbe said, we see that the Meraglim themselves acted in a way of actors, and therefore there's a whole message of actors hidden in what happened with them. Just in the actual keeping of the regal, before it all blew. When they came back, everything would have been perfect. Had they added what they added. Then the Rebbe goes into that was the whole problem. That they spoke about something they hadn't been asked to speak about. That wasn't their whole input. It's an amazing idea. And the Rebbe says that later, when Yeshua said Yishnei Meraglim, it's also got to do with actors. Because what's his name? Pinchas is a Kohen, he's from Levi. So what's he doing going into it? So he's not really, Shevet Levi never did these things. Or the Rebbe said, Liosid, when Moshiach comes, Shevet Levi is going to have a chayv. So and Yeshua, when he sent his two Meraglim, he was as well looking forward to what's going to be Bisman, Hagiula, and then it's going to be everybody's going to have a chelik. Once again, the idea of a manliness, it's going to be linked with a tremendous actors, and that was also hidden in Yeshua's sending of his people, and that's the link up with the similarity between them, that was ultimately aiming at the actors of the whole Jewish people, Yosef Rabbi, and this was the union of actors, all 12 of them did everything for everybody, and that's an absolute actor. Good.
How does that connect with the Actus B'Torah? Actus B'Torah. And the Rabbi began with the beginning of every Parshas has Actus in the Torah.
Yeah, Actus is so. The Yossi Lova, Levi's also going to have a feeling. So, what's his name? Pinchas. He went in because the Yossi, everything's going to be one. Everybody's going to be all together.
And what's the connection with tzitzis? With tzitzis?
The tzitzis is the same thing. When you look at one mitzvah, you remind yourself of all the mitzvahs. So you see how the individual is only indicative of the God. In other words, that the prat leads you into a the God.
The strings, the knots, the windings, 613.
It's tremendously hard work, and this is only the skeleton, the actual secret. Amazing.
No, he's asking about Achdus in the Torah. Achdus in the Torah.
Yeah, Torah.
Achdus in Torah.
Torah, yeah.
That's what he's asking.
Yeah, he talks about that also. That through Torah you come to actors. When you didn't learn Torah, that causes amongst them actors. Particularly when they all learn in their network together, the Torah mind. That's also how you mature. That's what he began the whole thing with actors. So there we are. Oh my goodness. It's right there. It's unbelievable. What's this? I'm supposed to hear better with this thing. I do actually hear, but it's a little bit difficult. But
Your voice is lower.
my voice is lower. What do you say? Can you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can hear. It's a little difficult for us.
I couldn't hear me.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, because I didn't turn this on.
It's a feedback.
Hi, everyone, make it a pint, come and join us.
I'm not sure he was so much.
Actus. Wow.
Kathy, which is greater, Octus or Emes? All this talk of Octus is very nice, but is Emes Iker or is Octus Iker?
Achdus be'emes. He says he wants. How do we get Achdus be'emes? What's Achdus be'emes? Nicht Samson. Emes.
What is Actus Behemoth?
How do you get to Actus Behemoth?
Oh,
That's not my question. My question is, which is Iker?
so you want to know? This will be like the first of all, say the fact that this will be the like the Fabring part.
Yes.
And then you'll have to forgive me, but is this still being viewed? The Chaim.
Pinchas Eliyahu ben Sarah.
Pinchas Eliyahu ben Sarah. Of course,
Baruch Hashem better.
it's interesting. I sent him a couple of emails, and I haven't had an answer, but he probably.
Does this belong to anybody?
Did you just take? Nobody has any.
No, they put it to you.
So, Yaakov.
We got a Shechion?
Baruch atah Adonai
Miriam Bas Chaim.
What is that?
Yaakov got to a very
Elohim when Israel they're captain. He was in hospital.
Yeah, and also, we went today to yesterday. So, Florida. Pinchas Eliyahu. You can hear from this. Can you hear from this? This?
You can see. Which one is
I don't follow him. Is Yaakov has Shiloh had to get to Actus Behemoth. We understand
That makes
Actus,
sense.
and we teach Actus, and we see the concept of Actus, of how do you actually get to Actus. So listen, Be'ashgacha Prati, I read a story which reminded me of a point I'd heard. There's a story of Reb Mendele Vitebsko. Now, Reb Mendele Vitebsko was the Alter Rebbe's Rebbe after the Stalkus Amagid, and the Rebbe's even got a big question as to whether he's one of the Nasiya Chabad. You know about that, whether he's really considerable one of the Nasiya Chabad. However, he was a very great person, and he lived here in Eretz Yisrael. As a woman, he came, especially to Eretz Yisrael with 300 families, and they settled. They made the famous Chassidish Aliyah, the Mendele Vitebsk. So once when they had been in Eretz Yisrael for a certain amount of time, a certain Yid who had lived previously in Europe, and he'd also made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael. I don't know if Dabki Im Reb Mendele, but around about that time. And he came to Reb Mendele and he complained. And he said that he was told that when he comes to Eretz Yisrael, it's a most wondrous Kedusha, that, you lose all your taivas and all your not good things, or at least you get a tremendous assistance at being mavatal and all. And he said, by him, he doesn't feel that way. He feels that Davgi's come here to Eretz Yisrael, and he's sitting in Eretz Yisrael, but he feels that the Yetzer Hara is bothering him in some ways more than what he used to bother him in Chutz. So you know what Reb Mendele said to him? Reb Mendele said to him, listen, he says, it's written that Kalev and Yoshua, they said that Toiva ha'oretz ma'oid. Yeah. So he said, what is ma'oid? What they need to say? They could have said ha'oretz whom you had was ma'oid. So he said it's written in Pirkei Avos, ma'oid haved shafal ruach. You have to be shafal ruach helikot You have to be batil in your own self. You shouldn't hold your own self to be Matthias. Very, very much. He said, your problem when you were in Chutz, and he said, Eretz Yisrael does that to you. When you come to Eretz Yisrael, you feel more the shiftless and the beetle, because it's written about Eretz Yisrael, and it's written about shiftless. So when he comes to Eretz Yisrael, he said, when you were in Chutz, you didn't feel all the time, or you didn't realize them. It's because you were suffering from gaiva. You were a big about gaiva. Really, you thought to yourself, me, I'm a big gaiva. I don't know any Paul Baruch Hashem, to Tivers and all the Mishagazim. He said that was because you were under the block, the mistake of gaiva. He said when he came into Eretz Yisrael brings that to people, doesn't it? It makes them realize ma'oid. He said that toivo of Eretz Yisrael that it does to you is ma'oid habishvalrag. And he said, since you lost your gaiva, then you begin seeing the real picture. And he said you had times that he said, not there at the Yisrael, of course, the time as you got them anyway. What happened is that you became a bisnel, a shvalruah, mitzad the ma'oid, yeah? And therefore you begin to realize where you're really holding. The chutz, you were under the shmir of gaiva, you didn't realize. That's kind of super. But I thought that's the most amazing super. He told him that you had everywhere the time was listening chutzos, you didn't realize now you know. It's very, so what do we see from that? That the whole inyan of doing ultimately the entrance to Ratzon Hashem and Eretz Yisrael, which means Eretz Yisrael, is only through Bitol, Emes, Shval, Ruach, Ma'oid. It's a Mishnah in Perigel. What does that mean? That you're going to lose all your own yeshus. You're going to lose. The trouble why we never really get to Emes Actors is we're still a little bit under the schmear of our own God. Me, that. So you don't admit it to yourself when you don't. You say, and it's not, that's something that's on the table, but unfortunately it's there. Vitebska says you got to be shvalruah ma'oid. You got to forget about your own self completely. And if you can forget about your own self, and all your own motives and all what your yeshus talks you into, then you can be Baptist with people. Then you can be Baptist. Or you can sometimes be holding a good thing and you can be holding a right thing. But you're sort of, who am I? Plainly, I don't get on with him, he said something I touched him. That's the problem. You got to be, and you should realize that Rabbi Vitebsky was a very, very amazingly great man. He was tremendously, had good models and self-effacing. And people to this day can't figure how did he attract people, because he was all the time playing himself down. He was always looking down. He never looked outside his downwards. And yet, nonetheless, he attracted with this amazing charisma all these people. People just flowed to him. And he never did anything to really impress anybody, or he never tried, and he never believed that he was worthy of impressing anybody. And those who write about him, write this tremendous, absolute shvalruah, ma'oid. Yet nonetheless, he had this amazing following. People just flocked to him. So what's it the beer? The beer is that you give off what you really got to give, and he was very gifted, and he had a lot to give. Unbelievable. If you're a strong worker, and then you can be baptized with other people. And that was one of the reasons that he suffered very much when he first came to Israel, because he was in Tzfas at the beginning, and then he went to live in Dvar. And Davki and Tzfas, he had a lot of unpleasant episodes with people who were not Chassidim. I don't want to use the term mistake, but they were very far from being Chassidim. And he had a lot of difficulties here, and he was very, very pained that he couldn't live Ba'atas. He wanted so much to be Ba'atas with everybody, and he left. He went to Tiberia, and the greatness that he found in Tiberia was there was some really great Geonim of the Svadim, the time of the Abalafias, and they were just unbelievable. He's got Sforim that you can never figure what he's saying. It's just so full of Geonas, and it just pours one thing after the other. It's unbelievable. And yet, they were just absolutely modest and humble people. And they saw a meddling. They said, oh, yeah, of course, it'll come in. It's all going to be good for the community. And, who are we? And ultimately, I think it was the time of Olympia, the Rabbi Levitevsky, they became Mukhotonim. The Einikla married one the other, at Kedika. Yeah. But so we see that the secret to the whole genuine actor is bittul atzma, and feeling the other person. Yeah. I remember my mashpia used to say to me, what does it mean, Ahavas Yisrael? Ahavas Yisrael doesn't just mean you try to love the other person. No, he said, Ahavas Yisrael means that you feel the other person. You feel what is happening with you. And you feel like him. You follow? Get the idea? It's not just that you know he has a problem, but you, as it were, feel his problem. You say, let's go back. So, and that's and that's what leads after us. Therefore, we should realize that Chassidim in Russia, people like Mendel, even those before him, they were tremendous artists. They would do anything, one for the other. You know the famous stories of these people who took people into their houses, so they knew that the authorities were after them, and it was a suck on them. For them to take these people into their houses. But it was just a pshita, The hour, the actors is just so amazing, that they'll care one for the other. That's the immediacy. That's the everything after. And it's just unbelievable when you hear the story. And they were ready at any cost to do something for the other person, even at putting themselves into terrible psychosis. So it's just absolutely wonderful. And that's what Mendel was for. He said you have to be shvalua ma'oid ma'oid. Ma'oid means pligu. Ma'oid. Pligu silver pligu. Everybody be one. Everybody should be matzliya, It's a good question that Yaakov raised. How do we do it? Papoya, how do we get out this mom? Papoya. Oh, that's Pinchas Eliyahu.
Yeah.
Wow. Shalom Aleichem, Pinchas Eliyahu. Shalom Aleichem.
Pinchas.
He's listening.
How are you there, my boy?
There's no listeners at the moment.
How are you keeping?
Shalom
Wow. How
Aleichem shalom.
That's amazing. So you're looking very well, good job. You're doing Mikhail Hoyo, and it's all going to be Hoyo, Hoyo.
He got sick there.
Is on or no?
It will be Hoyo, Hoyo.
You heard what he said?
Praise Hashem.
Yeah, now Rav Gafni said it's going to be like it never existed. All right?
So listen, we all together, Pinchas Eliyahu, all of us together, but after tomorrow, we all wish you not just a refuah shleima, but we wish you a recovery of all your koiches b'shleimas, harikura, hachloma, a return to all your inyanim, take simcha v'tuv Davke b'simcha, and Be'ez Hashem, all of us together with the Rebbe and the Gula Mita Vashleima and all of us in Yerushalayim, Yira Kodesh, take him Me'ad Mamish.
Amen.
Be'ez Hashem. In other words, unfortunately, the Meraglim were very great people, but they got somehow off the line. But we're going into Eretz Yisrael. We're not interested in anything. We are doubtfully going, into Eretz Yisrael.
In the Haftorah, we have Pinchas. Pinchas in the Haftorah.
Oh, yeah.
Pinchas, he's a good Meraglim.
And in the Haftorah, somebody B'Shem Pinchas is mentioned. Pinchas Hakoyen, it was the second Meragil in the Haftorah.
Gabriel say L'chaim is going to the doctor now.
L'chaim, refuah shleima, Pinchas Eliyahu ben Sarah Imenu, refuah shleima, all the checkups, will be everything clean and clear, Michael and Chayil, from better to better, from strength to strength. Refuah shleima, l'chaim.
Yechi Adonenu Morenu V'Rabbeinu Melech HaMashiach Li'olam Voed.
Fine.
See, that was the refuah.
Okay, very good.
Wake up.
No, it's all. I sent you an email with an answer to your question. I hope you saw it.
No, but be nice. Be nice.
We should always